I want to talk a little bit about some of the lures, rods, line, reels, equipment we used up at La Crosse, Wisconsin pools. We fished pool 6 one day, fished mostly pool 8. Again, we had a lot of low water there, a lot of ramps were unusable. In fact, while we were there, the high school FLW National Championship was going on. They were scheduled to launch out of French Island. They had to move, and they actually launched about a quarter mile from a public launch from where we were staying, which really wasn't a big deal. You can really spread out up there. Several teams, I think, locked through up to pool 7 and locked down to pool 9. We obviously didn't lock because we were just fun fishing while we were there. Our whole family went, so we fished out of our 721 Phoenix. 4 of us every day. With the room in the 721 Phoenix, we had no problem moving around, fishing every day. Our focus when we go up there, we love to catch pike, northern pike, and we love to catch the bass. And the great thing is you can use the same lures to do both. We did experiment on pool 6 a little bit, and we'll talk about that as well, what we did up there, because there wasn't as many backwaters on pool 6, especially with the low water. One of the things my kids love to do, I love to do it too, is throw a frog, which is a common thing. Everybody knows about throwing a frog up there. I think one of the keys for us with the frog this week, especially with the pressure, is we started using the smaller size frogs. So we went to the Spro, smaller perch colored frog. Still threw it on braid. This was 65-pound Suffolk braid. I had that spooled onto a Lew's high-speed reel, a 7:5 to 1 gear ratio Lew's speed spool, and I throw my frog on this Fitzgerald rod. This is a Fitzgerald Versa series, 7-foot heavy, and I will tell you one of the things about this 7-foot heavy that's unique is it is not a broomstick handle type heavy rod. It actually has a little bit of give in the rod. It has a little bit of spring, so it absorbs a little bit, but it has that backbone down in there of a heavy action rod. It really drives the hooks into the fish. This is a great casting rod. I use this here at home. I carry one with a frog on it for even around here. Spinner baits, buzz baits, things of that nature. You can lighten it up if you want and do some other things with it, but it is a great versatile moving baits rod for me. One of the other things we do up there is throw a swim jig. We'd love to throw a swim jig. This year we threw a homemade bluegill colored swim jig in a 1/4 ounce. We experimented with that, but it seemed like this year this Crocagator zapper jig, made here locally in Missouri, but this Crocagator green pumpkin colored plain green Crocagator 3/8 ounce jig with either a Zoom speed craw, or we used a craw pappy. We also used a Strike King small rage craw. As long as it was green pumpkin, watermelon with some blue flake in it, and then chartreuse on the tail. Obviously we're imitating a bluegill, and we were swimming this through the grass. I will tell you, one of the things I noticed this year when we were swimming this through the grass, the first couple of days we were there, I seemed to be catching a lot of fish on this thing, but when I told the back of my boat where my wife and my kids were to just speed up, we were humming this thing along through that grass. We were fishing it anywhere from 2 inches under the surface to maybe a foot deep, and we were just fishing grass edges with it, just swimming it like crazy everywhere we went. And if it got too thick, obviously we picked up the frog. The other thing we learned is one of my sons was having trouble getting things hooked up, and in fact at one point he bent one of the jigs on a really big pike and just seemed to be ripping the hooks free, not getting a good hook in the fish. I was fishing my swim jig, probably contrary and contradictory to some, on a softer rod. I was using 30-40 pound braid, Suffolk braid, and I was throwing it on a 7-foot medium heavy Versa Fitzgerald rod. but it is a moderate action. It is not a fast action. And so when those fish would hit that swim jig, it would load up the rod, and I think those pike especially, and some of the bass, were getting that jig deeper in their mouth, and I was hooking them in the bony part of their mouth. With the fast action medium heavy or the fast action heavy rod, felt like we were pulling it away from them or ripping it through the skin and not really getting a good hook in the fish, and we seemed to lose a lot. When my son that was having trouble with that went to a lighter lose rod, he was throwing a medium action lose rod. It's actually a saltwater version. He started catching a lot more fish, and his hookup ratio went way up. But this 7-foot medium heavy moderate action Versa Series Fitzgerald rod does a great job with this swim jig. Here at home, it's actually my square bill type rod. I throw a jerk bait on it in the winter. You can swim a grub on it with really light line as well. It is a good all-around moderate action moving baits rod for me. I throw it on a LFS speed spool by Luz. Again, I was humming that along. I was fishing it on a 7:5 to 1 gear ratio reel. Typically for square bills, I don't fish that fast of a reel on this rod, but for the swim jig, I was trying to move that thing along. So I was throwing it on a high-speed reel, obviously with braid to get them out of the grass, but that was a great setup. Another thing we did, and my youngest probably did the most, we threw a black buzzbait, especially early or when we had rain and clouds, just throwing a buzzbait across the grass. This was a War Eagle that we threw some. We threw several different brands. Just a side note, we did not throw our crocodigator buzzbaits because we didn't want the pike tearing up our crocodigators. We saved those for bass fishing here this fall at home. We did do a little bit of flipping with the low water up in the Goose Island area. We flipped some laydowns. So for that, I still went with 20-pound fluorocarbon, or this 17-pound Suffix fluorocarbon, high-speed Luz LFS reel, 7'3" heavy Versa Series rod, fast action, big stick, slam that hook into them. I threw a green pumpkin Zoom Super Hog with some orange on the tail, just imitating a crawdad. 3/8 ounce sinker, had a little bit of current, but we'd get in some of the slower current, flip behind those current breaks, those laydowns. Caught a really nice 3.5 pounder doing that the second to the last day, even after the pressure of everybody being there for a week. When we did go to pool 6, we ended up cranking riprap on the main lake and any high spots, and we caught probably 50 plus smallmouth, not very many keepers, but it was just a lot of fun to catch a bunch of fish, get my kids to get a lot of bites. I used a 7'3" medium, moderate action Versa, Fitzgerald Versa rod. The moderate action is a great crankbait action, but it still allows me with some 12-pound, 14-pound fluorocarbon, I can still feel the action of the bait. You can actually, with this rod, it's sensitive enough that you can feel the fish stop the wiggle of the lure. And when you can do that, and you can feel what the rocks are doing on the bottom and what the changes are in the bottom, or you know when up there, you know when you get grass on your lure, so you can clean it off or pop it free, whatever. We cranked a Strike King Series 3 6 to 8 medium depth crankbait from the bank out as far as we could. We caught channel cats, we got a ton of smallmouth, caught a couple of keeper walleyes, and caught one good largemouth up there doing that. But it was just a fun way to catch a lot of fish. Just crank that current, and the current seams and breaks. Again, paired on a Luz LFS reel. I will tell you, if you haven't checked out this Luz LFS reel, it is the best $100 reel on the market. You cannot go wrong with this reel. You can get it in right or left-handed. You can get it in high speed. You can get it in, like this one, in a 6/8 to 1, which is a little bit slower speed. It is a great reel for cranking. It slows me down a little bit, but when those fish come in and suck that crankbait and are coming towards me, I can still get enough speed to catch up with the fish, pull into them with this moderate action rod. I just don't lose very many fish. Same outfit I used to throw a wiggle wart here in the Ozarks. Worked great up there with a Series 3 crankbait. and I'll be throwing a Series XD5 or a Series 6 XD on it probably this summer a little bit. So that is a majority of what we did. We did catch a few on a Terminator frog. For some reason that black one day with the chartreuse was a good catcher. But that's what we did, folks. It's shallow fishing, power fishing at its best. When you go up there, I do tell you that's one place I have found that I use a lot of braid. I'm not a fan of braid, but when you get up in the grass up there on the Mississippi River, I am a fan of the braid up there, and the water's tannic in many spots, and all that grass, I just don't think the fish really notice the braid. They focus in on that swim jig or that buzzbait or that frog, and I just don't think they see the braid much. So we power fished our way all week, had a great time, came home with sore elbows and wrists, a few cuts on our fingers, and yeah, got a bunch of pike in the freezer. Maybe next year we can do a video on how to Y-bone a pike and how we clean those so you can eat them. If you're a crappie fan, you would like the northern pike. Till next time, be safe, have fun, good fishing, take somebody with you.